Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. I think I need to let Matt drink his whatever he has concocted.
Oh, it's pretty much the same as yours.
What was it you had the other day? You called it like a ginski or something.
Oh, no. Whiskeyla.
A whiskeyla. Well, now you got to do a ginski because that just sounds really interesting. Yeah, we're like low on ingredients on everything. And so Matt has started becoming very creative with his alcohol drinks by just putting different, like it's a cocktail if it's got more than one thing.
That's right. Even if it just only has one kind of liquor in it. If it's mixed with something else.
Right. No,
it's a
cocktail. All you need to do is put two different liquids together and it's a cocktail. So two different liquors together.
Yeah.
Hey, it's not a good cocktail, but it's a cocktail.
Yep.
I think the whiskeyla knocked you for a loop.
Mm-hmm.
And then what were you drinking when we did, was it Wolves of the Kala?
Part 2?
Where you were like, I made a Long Island iced tea. You came in with like a giant cup. And all I saw was you out there pouring the end of liquor bottles all into the same cup.
Yeah, I finished off.
Live fast, die young. That's your motto.
Actually, I don't think I finished anything off for that last one.
Okay, well, you were just...
I was just portioning out.
Okay. You were...
From the selection.
A little splash of this, a little splash of this.
I did have some gin and whiskey and tequila in it.
Okay, so it's a ginskila.
Ginskila.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about the wind through the keyhole.
Not the wind in the willows.
Not the wind in the willows or the wind in the keyhole or whatever variation of title I have called it this week. But it is the wind
The breeze in the spyglass.
Correct. Yeah. The Wheel of Time? No, that's the one that always starts with the, there was a wind in the mountains and it blew down the whatever. We made, I got this email that was like, congratulations, you've made the top whatever. You're in the top 100 sci-fi fantasy book club pod, which it's like so niche. Of course we are. There's probably less than 100 anyway.
Yeah.
It's top 100 sci-fi fantasy book club podcasts. And we weren't even 100. We were 30, which I was like, haha, we'll be like 98. And no, we were not. But I did scan the list of titles to see who else was on there.
Yeah.
And the ones at the top definitely deserved it. Book reviews, kills, flights of fantasy, some of the real big ones that I see. The people that put a lot of effort into what is called marketing.
Advertising.
Other people find them based on them telling other people that they exist. It's a revolutionary science. Honestly, it's inscrutable. I don't understand what they're doing, but I love it for them. What I'm getting at here is two, I noticed. Kingslingers, which is a Dark Tower only podcast.
Oh.
They break down the Dark Tower books, like in minute detail.
Oh.
That was on there. So if you're like, wow, this overview just really leaves me wanting more Dark Tower, check them out.
If you want more literary analysis.
And another one was like, it wasn't a Wheel of Time. It was like a Wheel of Pod or something. I should have written it down, but it was a Wheel of Time only podcast. I'm always impressed with these people that do like one book. And then they do it
series.
Chapter by chapter. Not.
Oh, those ones. Yeah, where they go chapter by chapter.
They literally go chapter by chapter. I don't know.
It's like doing an entire TV series, episode by episode.
That's different. It's different. It's meant to be experienced as individual stories. Chapters are to break down.
Chapters in a book.
Yeah. It would have to be a book that I had already read and that I knew I loved and that I really wanted to sit and digest with somebody. I don't think I could go into a book that I had never read.
A brand new book.
and read it chapter by chapter and not tear it to like ever loving shreds. Just so, like, because I'm so bored, I have to pick it like a hangnail. I'm all respect for people that do that. I'm glad we're making it through a series. If we had to make it through a book chapter by chapter, I don't know. You know what? Maybe one day will come. Maybe Empire of the Dawn, the last Empire of the Vampire book.
Yeah.
I may have gotten approved to read that on NetGalley.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, it's excerpts. So I'm torn. So it's like abridged. I don't know if I want to read it abridged because then I'm going to get the story, but I'm not going to get the whole story, and then I'm going to have to go back and reread it.
You know, Jay, just
shoot it
DM him.
Come on, we'll take it. You know, it's fun. You know, he does like a charity fundraiser where he sells ARCs. And then he donates the money to charity, which is one of the things that people get mad at him about, which I think is hysterical. Like, I get it if you are not a Jay Kristoff fan. I understand the criticism of his earlier novels. I understand kind of the criticism of the like youth of the characters in the one series that everybody's all mad about all the time. God's Grave, whatever. But don't be mad at somebody for selling ARCs and then donating the money to charity. Like I'm sorry. Is it because he's not giving ARCs to everybody or because only people who can afford it can buy? I don't understand. It's fine.
Yeah, maybe is the culture around ARCs.
Oh, very gatekeepy. So gatekeepy. So like unrealistically gatekeepy.
I am such a prestigious podcast that
yes.
I got an ARC for this for free.
And then you are not to sell them.
Right.
You are not to do. We've gotten an ARC. One time HarperCollins just like cold call sent us an ARC and we read it and it was really good. It was Day Tripper. It was one of our favorite books.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I loaned it to a friend and I never got it back, but I shouldn't sell that. Like if someone saw me selling an ARC, they get mad at you. Even though here's how the review culture is structured. Okay. I get sent an ARC. I am expected to spend my time reading that book. I am expected to use my platform to promote that book and promote that author. I am expected to request
compensation.
No compensation.
Right.
The only compensation.
The honor.
Yes.
Of the privilege.
Yeah.
Of receiving the ARC.
It's like those comics where they're like, here, you can have it exposure. Yeah. I'll pay you an exposure. Great. Yeah. I don't think they take exposure at the grocery store.
Right.
Right. I can see waiting to sell an ARC until after the book comes out.
Yes.
Absolutely. But you know what it is sometimes the ARCs are unedited copies or they will have like, they're not the final form of the book.
Right. So it's a special edition.
It's a special edition,
rare.
And it may not reflect the final quality of the prose, or it may have errors or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like you don't want your dirty laundry out and about. But at the same time, you sent it to me. I spent my time on it. I don't know. It's a sticky thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what I usually end up doing is telling people to just send me the ebook because then I'll just delete it. Right. No problem. And then you don't have to pay to print it. You don't have to pay to mail it to me. I don't have a physical book that I have to keep up with. It's so much easier to just get a PDF.
Yeah.
But anyway, back when I used to actually respond to people, I get so many review requests. I can't even. I love all of you. I'm so excited that you guys are excited about your books. And I really wish I had the bandwidth to review every book that I was requested to review. I really wish I could. But there's a reason we only put one podcast out a month right now. And it's because we have what are called children. And they demand food like 3 times a day. It's fucking ridiculous.
More than that.
More than that.
You'll just walk through them. Snack.
It's like baby birds. They're like, rah, rah. They like open their mouth when I walk by. Our son is pretty sure that if he can get you to do it for him, why in God's name would he ever do it for himself? So it's a struggle to get him to get up and get his own water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, they are in school next year, and I will
this coming fall. Yeah.
I will have days where they are gone at school and not with me, and I don't know what's going to happen. I may actually update the Patreon. We have 16 members. 16 Patreon. I think the last time I looked, we had like
patrons.
10. I know. Hello, everybody. I wish I could thank each and every one of you. However, Patreon does not let me look at my list. I can only see people that have joined within the last 30 days. So I'm going to thank those people. But if I missed you, leave and come back. I'll see you. But thanks to Ninja Dentist, who joined Nights.
Okay.
DLS, who joined, I think, Henchhumans. Yeah, Henchhumans. And Andrew, who joined All the Strange and Beautiful People. It's the tiers don't tell you anything. They're all $1 now. At one point, they were different. At one point, I had the bandwidth to commit to Patreon, 2-ish years ago.
Yeah.
And maybe for our 3rd anniversary, I will recommit myself.
Right. With your new lease on time during the day.
Yeah. I'll have time to, I don't know, breathe, eat alone, go to the bathroom.
Poop alone?
Go to the bathroom without somebody being like, Mom, where are you? I don't know. They can hear you whispering in the other room. And yet when they're like, where are you? And you shout, I'm in the pod lab. I'm in the living room. They're like, where? It should be studied. Honestly, it should be the way that children hear. Anyway, 11 minutes in, we have had an uncharacteristically long intro. So I guess we'll just get started talking about The Wind Through the Keyhole, which came out April 24th, 2012. So it came out a significant amount of time after the last Wheel of Time. I shouldn't have done that to myself.
Dark Tower.
The last Dark Tower book came out.
Okay.
And I saw I was reading a couple of reviews just to be like, what was the temperature on this book when it came out? Because I can imagine if you get all the way through the Dark Tower, which I've seen oblique references, but I'm like, la, 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 trying not to pay attention to how it ends, that the ending was controversial. There's no way a book series this weird and this beloved and this inspiring of devotional fans was not going to have a controversial ending.
Right.
Because there's no way to please everybody.
Right.
So can you imagine you've read all those books? There's some sort of controversial ending. And then he announces a new Dark Tower book. You go buy it. And it has literally nothing to do with the rest of the quest.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the timeline, the publication dates. There's The Little Sisters of Illyria. Is another.
Yeah, I think that's on the list. Because he has a couple short stories. And this one I saw referenced as a short story, but it's actually longer than the first novel. This book is longer than The Gunslinger.
Wind Through the Keyhole?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So, okay. Wolves of the Kala came out in 2003. Song of Susannah and The Dark Tower came out in 2004. And this one came out 8 years after.
Yes, correct.
The final book in the series.
You've waited that long, and then you get this book.
Right.
I like this book. It's fine. I have no problem with this book. Stephen King said he envisioned it as a modern fairy tale. I could definitely see that. I have seen, anyway, I was looking at contemporary reviews to kind of get the temperature of how was this received. And I saw one where they didn't necessarily talk about this book in particular, except as like well, that was fun, but it didn't really give us any more. But it was nice to revisit the characters. But they said, and I really think it's a really good way to frame it, which is that there is the first part of the Dark Tower. And there is the last section of the Dark Tower. So there's like the first 3 books and the last 3 books. And that there is really 2 halves of the story. That the first 3 are told one way and the last 3 are narratively entirely distinct from the first 3.
Okay.
Because if you think about the first 3, they're quest. They're just quest based.
Right.
Roland is walking across the desert after Walter.
Right. it's purely about making progress.
It's about following Walter, not even the Dark Tower.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Just Walter. Then he starts on his real quest towards the Dark Tower, which was always ultimately going to be his quest. And he's gathering his party. He gets, he goes through the doors, all quest-based, all action, not questioning the larger meaning of the world that he's in or the idea of the world moving on or any of that, except that this world is post-apocalyptic. Right. That's it. And then the third book, where they go through Lud and all of that, again, straight quest. That's it. And then we have the fourth book, Wizard in Glass.
Which switches to the world of the Stand.
Yeah. When we start,
it's a story within a story.
He becomes obsessed. Stephen King becomes focused on the nature of fiction. So instead of it being purely a quest, this is a book. It is happening in a world. There's no larger question about the nature of fiction and the nature of creation and whether an author's role in the creation of a story, and are they actually creating a world, and what is their responsibility to the characters in that world, and all of the questions that are going to be raised and have been raised in the second half don't even enter anyone's mind in the first half. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really fascinating. And they pointed out that the last three are all written after he gets hit by the car. Stephen King gets hit by the car, and he writes all the last of the Dark Tower in a rush, all at once. As like I gotta finish it.
Yeah.
And also, I've realized that I have larger questions on my
mortality.
Mind. Yeah. And so what is the nature of life? Am I actually creating life when I create a story? Will these characters live on after me? But literally live on after me, not just as figments of imagination, but as a character in a world that I have created. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really fascinating, especially since he then writes this book, which is not a story as much as it is 3 novellas all nestled inside of each other.
Right.
Because we have the frame story.
Nesting dolls.
Yeah, nesting doll. Because we have the frame story, which is Roland and Eddie and Susannah and Jake and Oy on their way to Calibre and Sturgis, although they don't know that that's where they're heading yet.
Right.
And they're crossing the river, and they meet that guy Bix. And I'm not really sure what his purpose is, except to tell them that there's a storm coming, because Oy has been standing and just turning his head to one direction.
Right.
And Roland's like, that's not good. I don't remember what that means, but that means something. I feel like that meant something. And then Bix is like, yeah, there's a polar vortex. There's like it's like the scene in The Day After Tomorrow when they outrun the cold air.
Right.
Because you can like see the cold air creeping along the wall. But they call it a Stark blast. And so they end up crossing the river, and then they take refuge in this meeting hall. It has to be stone because the Stark blast comes with some pretty crazy wind. And while they're stuck in there, Roland tells them a story. And
of his youth.
Of his youth. And I love how he just invents another gunslinger, because that way he doesn't have to figure out where it fits in the larger story of the other two that he normally would travel with.
Yeah.
So forget the people from Wizard and Glass. We're going to talk about Jamie DeCurry. Actually, we're not going to talk about Jamie DeCurry because I'm not really sure what his purpose was, because
he
doesn't
Roland.
even really get lines, except every once in a while Roland will be like, yeah, he wasn't much of a talker.
I'm imagining King writing the story and then being like, oh yeah, Jamie's here. And I forgot to add any dialogue for him, and the dialogue's like pretty good as it is, and I don't want to mess it up.
So I'll just put a line in there.
Jamie doesn't talk much.
Yeah, Jamie doesn't talk much. Sometimes you even forget he's there. There's a character in the Akatar world, and she comes in
That's
the
a
second.
Court of Thorns and Roses.
Oh yeah, okay, sorry, Sarah J. Maas, Court of Thorns and Roses, whatever. The one I'm rereading for Feast, Teeth, and Chatter right now. And she comes in the second book. And legit, I'm pretty sure, don't come at me. This is, when you read, okay? You know when an author has forgotten about the character.
Yeah.
You know when they've strategically disappeared to do something, and you know when oh, fuck, I got to wrap that up. Because in a later book, way later, she just pops out of the woods. Ha ha, I'm here. And then she gets like immediately murdered. Because she just really just needed.
She needed to wrap that up.
She needed to wrap that shit up. That's kind of what Jamie felt like. Like we're never going to see him again. So he was just like, Roland would go with someone. He wouldn't go alone. He needs
the buddy system.
He needs somebody to talk to. I know Matt's all about the buddy system. Every podcast, what the fucking buddy system? Friends. You need friends. But I don't want to make him a character, so whatever. It doesn't really matter. Honestly, once we switched to the third story, which is the wind through the keyhole, which is a story that Roland was told by his mother.
The fairy tale of Gilead.
Yeah. Yes. The wind through the keyhole, which was in a book that he read when he was a small one. I don't know, a child. Which was honestly the best part of the whole book. And then I was reading the physical copy. I was getting pretty close to the end. I had very few pages on the right-hand side. And I was like, wasn't there another story? I totally forgot about this.
I was listening to the audiobook.
I forgot.
And I was getting close to the end I just finished Wind in the Keyhole, like layer 3 story. And we hopped back to the layer 2 story of young Roland and Jamie. And Rachel was like, oh yeah, you're almost done. I was like, what? I have over an hour left in the audiobook.
Yeah.
And then in like 20 minutes, it wrapped up the entire thing. And then it went into like samples from book 7 and then an excerpt from another Stephen King book.
Which is a bold choice considering, I believe we mentioned this, and it bears repeating, Stephen King read that audiobook. He read the audiobook for The Wind Through the Keyhole. It was a choice. Choices were made.
So, okay.
Correct.
I can see if this book came out 8 years after, like 5, 6, and 7, then...
Wonder if the original guy was not available?
Yeah, and I know Frank Muller got really badly injured.
And died shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
Yeah, he died within a year of that accident.
Oh, within a year? I thought it was 3 or 4 years later. Okay,
it was really quick.
So Frank Muller, R.I.P. Another guy finished the series. And then this was 8 years later.
Yeah.
He probably couldn't get the other guy. Let me look up his name. I don't want to not credit him.
Because he did a really good job. He did a fabulous job on Wolves of the Kala.
Oh, yeah. George Geidel.
Okay. He did a great job.
Oh, yeah. Apparently, George Geidel. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. So I pulled it up on Libro FM.
Yeah.
Look at the number of audiobooks credited to George Geidel on Libro.fm.
770? Oh, he read The Golem and the Genie? The Jinn or whatever?
He read The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin.
Wow. He was really good. I might actually listen to those if it's him.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, I guess I heard him read American Gods.
He was great.
He did a really good job.
Is he deceased? Is that why they didn't have him do it again? Maybe he had... Oh, you know what? It could be like when we were listening to the Dresden Files and James Marsters was reading them. Spike was reading them. And they had that one where he had some sort of conflict and he couldn't do it. Yep. And they got somebody else to do it.
Danny Glover.
Yeah. The white one. The one that played Lex Luthor's dad on Smallville. Yeah, they had him do it. And everyone was like...
He did a decent job.
He did fine. It's not his fault that everyone was like, la la, no,
it's not our James.
It doesn't sound like Harry Dresden.
And my take on that was...
Well, it was the ghost one anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
My take was, like, lore-wise, it's consistent to have a different narrator because it's
the one where Harry's not
Harry
himself
Dresden.
anyway.
It's just his bare soul running around.
Yeah.
So like
they re-recorded it.
Yeah, James Marsters re-recorded it. Yeah.
It felt like that. You know what? If you listen to audiobooks, you get readers you like and you get readers you don't like. And I didn't particularly care for the first couple, but I really liked him. And all due respect to the guy that did the first few.
George read a bunch of Tess Gerritsen books. I used to read a lot of Tess Gerritsen. They're like medical thrillers.
You told me you used to read medical thrillers, and I don't know who you are or who you were when you say that. I just don't understand.
Robin Cook, more medical thrillers.
Oh my God. How did you, what? I don't understand. I haven't changed genres my entire life.
I think my mom had picked out some books for me.
I read the Little Vampire series and I was like, this is fucking
I like these. And so I read them. And then I finished like all the Tess Gerritsen, all the Robin Cook books. And then I went back to, actually, that's when I started reading the Book of Words.
Yeah.
And that's when I really got into
you were like oh,
epic
fantasy is it. I think once you hit it, you're like, okay, this is it. Because I read the Little Vampire series, which I remember being mad that he ate eggs. I'm like 7. Of course, this character is not going to drink blood, but I was like, eggs? That's a fucking cop-out. So anyway, Prejudice starts young. And then I read The Winds of Mars.
George read a lot of Ralph Cotton.
Oh, I read The Winds of Mars by H.M. Hoover. And it was one of those children's books that was way better than it ever had any business being. There's definitely, like, don't sleep on early, like, not kindergarten, but, like, middle grade fiction.
Mm-hmm.
There are, like, Kate DiCamillo will change your life.
There's a lot of young adult stuff that just gets thrown in as young adult because basically there's no sex. There's nothing like really controversial or potentially offensive in it. And so they don't market it as adult fiction. They just say, oh, this doesn't have anything really offensive in it. So it's palatable for children. So we'll put it in young adult.
Yeah.
And they got to be careful.
Well, not young adult.
Because you read some young, well,
yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know where you're going, but what I'm saying is middle grade fiction. Like Kate DiCamillo wrote a book called The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, and it is
that book will fuck you up.
It is a like elementary fiction, middle grade fiction.
Yeah,
really elementary fiction is where it's shelved. No, what? It is about the nature of love and the nature of love in who you are as a person and the expression of
connections
love and the importance of love in the face of loss and how love is not possible without loss and how love is important even if it will lead to pain and loss.
Right. And as a result of loss, it is still worth it to seek out more love.
Right. Because if you don't risk the hurt, you can't find the joy either.
Right.
And it's told from the point of view of a porcelain rabbit, and not like not like a Velveteen Rabbit situation where it can move around. It is just a doll.
It is an inanimate thing. It's a passive observer.
Kate DiCamillo will fuck you up, okay? In all the best ways. And there's another one called A Monster Calls. I think they made a movie out of it, but the fact that it is not more well known is ridiculous because it is told from the point of view of a child who is processing their mother's death. Their mother died of cancer.
What?
And they are processing her death. And what happens is this yew tree comes to life and comes to their room as this giant monster and says, I'm going to come 3 times and tell you 3 stories. And then you must tell me a truth. And
is this one you just read?
I read it not too long ago, but it comes 3 times.
You just told me this story.
And tells the different stories. And then the boy has to tell it a truth or it will eat him.
Okay.
He'll die. And ultimately what he has to say is, I wished for my mother to die. Because by the end, she was so sick and she went through so much, and it took so much. It was so painful for him to go through and for him to see her go through it that he wished it would just be over.
Yeah.
And that's the truth that he has to tell. And then the monster is like, of course you did. That's the nature of loss. And that doesn't mean that you didn't love your mother. And it doesn't mean that you actually wanted her to die. And it is okay to feel that. And it is okay to feel like you want a return to normalcy, even if it means losing your mother, because that's okay. It's perfectly okay for you to have felt that. You still love your mother. And of course you didn't want her to die. That's an elementary grade. That book will fuck you up, okay? Don't sleep on elementary grade fiction. Some of them are so beautiful. So, because they have this really tight format. It has to be short. It can't be very flowery. It can be extremely metaphorical, because a child can read that book and get none of it, but the adult reading that book will get all of it. And if it is done well, it is so beautiful. There's another one called I Don't Want to Be Your Monster. And that one is also really, really good.
Is that Kate DiCamillo?
That's not Kate DiCamillo.
Okay.
That's somebody else. But it's this boy who's a vampire. And he meets these kids.
That was good. We listened to that in the car with the kids.
Yeah, and the kids really enjoyed it. And it's like a metaphor about acceptance and about how people can be different. And you maybe don't even realize how different they are, and that you can hurt them with your words because you're not being understanding or empathetic, and you should learn about it's just so good. It's so good. I don't even remember how we got here, but they're good when you're burned out and you've read so many giant fiction books and so many giant fantasy books. And like, you've read, what was the most recent Brandon Sanderson?
Wind and Truth.
You've gotten through all 75 hours of Wind and Truth or whatever. And you need something good. Oh,
I think it was The Golem and the Genie.
That's what you listened to?
No, I think that's what got you.
No, it was you reading medical thrillers.
Oh, yeah. It was my formative books from my youth.
Yes, and then I read The Winds of Mars by H.M. Hoover, and that ended up being way better than it had any business being. And she's actually credited with being one of those authors that just wrote really transformative fiction in the guise of children's fiction. Anyway, all that to say, The Wind Through the Keyhole. Time to read it. It's important to read to your kids, obviously, because Roland's mom read to him, and that's why he had this story ready to tell to this child when he needed to tell it to him. Because what's happening is, so the story Roland tells, which it's interesting that we put this, if we had read this after Wizard and Glass, it would have been a second book in a row where it's just Roland telling a tale.
Yeah.
Which would have been interesting.
And there's so much foreshadowing. Well, I guess not foreshadowing, post-shadowing.
It would have been foreshadowing had we read it first.
Retconned foreshadowing.
I'm glad we didn't read it first.
Yeah. There's so many things that are just allusions to Wolves of the Calla.
I would have loved. I would have hated it. Sorry. Loved. I was burping and it came out the opposite somehow. I would have hated if I'd already seen a Dogan. If I had already seen and then have it show up, I would have been like, oh, okay. That feels coincidental. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad we read it. I was poking around a little bit, and a lot of people recommend you read it at the end because it's a way to revisit the characters in a way that doesn't really change the story.
Right.
Because reading it, no matter where you read it, it doesn't really inform any of the other books, except it just kind of is character building.
Yeah.
So Roland is telling them the story about young Roland. So we're revisiting young 14-year-old.
So it's fitting that it takes place chronologically right after Wizard and Glass, because he's in a nostalgic mood.
He just told everybody he killed his mom. He just revealed the biggest reveal of all the reveals, which is, I shot my mom.
The biggest reveal of all the reveals so far.
So far. I shot my mom. And yeah, I kind of had a really vigorous sexual relationship with a 16-year-old when I was 14, but it's cool because she was the love of my life. But I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to go over this again.
1,000 years ago, but I'm still not over it.
I personally am still not over it, but not in the way that Roland isn't over it.
Right.
But what's happening is there's this shapeshifter, baby. The Skin Man harming people over in a little place called Debaria. And so Roland's dad is going to send him out there.
Hold on. You know what that reminds me of? His fixation on Susan Delgado.
Okay.
I think it was from City Slickers. Have you ever seen City Slickers?
You're digging deep, bro. But yeah, I think I've seen City Slickers once. But my dad was enamored with the second one when they go off and find like the mine with gold and shit.
Okay, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
But they're talking to like the old cowboy guy. And they're like, "Oh, have you ever been in love?" And he's like, "Yeah, one time I was riding through the countryside and I passed by this farm and I saw this young woman out in the field, like wearing a sundress or wearing a dress with the sun behind her and it shone through and he just saw her
naked, basically.
Basically naked.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I was in love once." And like, "Oh, so you went to talk to her?" "Oh, no, I just kept riding."
Yeah. City Slickers is one of those rare movies where the second one's better than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, kind of like that. Well, she was hot. She was so hot.
Well,
I can't even get
we're
not. We can't.
Well,
I'm gonna
hold on.
Okay. All right.
There's a distinction between she's so hot I'm lusting after her and that is a beautiful thing.
Okay. I'm going to hit pause. I'm going to hit pause right here because we are not rehashing Wizard and Glass. Please do not lead me down that rabbit hole.
I'm not going back into Wizard and Glass. I'm just saying the vibe that I got from this, I'm pretty sure it was from City Slickers. The City Slicker story is
I saw a beautiful
this guy didn't like he might have just been asexual.
Oh.
Right? He might have had zero like sex drive.
Okay. I just saw a beautiful thing.
He saw a beautiful woman in a landscape.
Okay. All right. I can respect that.
Right.
Okay.
And just that.
Yes. Well, baby Roland is going after the Skin Man, and his dad sends him after the Skin Man, and this is after the
Thinking
mourning
the Skin
period.
Man's like a hoax.
And this is only after the mourning period for his mom. So it's not long after at all. It is just like a, you know what, son?
Much shorter than the mourning period of Ducat.
We're not bringing We Are All Caution to this either. Not 10 cycles, whatever that means.
By the way, we have a podcast
we
about
can't
Babylon
do this.
5,
People are going to be
we're
like,
almost
stop
finished with season
advertising
1.
for. You know what's really funny, as I put on my Instagram story, and it's true, which is we got on that list and I was like, I don't know how you guys found us. I have cleverly hidden this podcast deep in the internet. I don't know how anyone finds us, but like, I'm really glad. I feel like the people that need us find us.
Yep.
That's how I feel about it. Anyway. His dad, Stephen
Deschênes.
Yeah, son of like Harry the Tall or something. They finally give him
of the line of elders.
He's like, go fuck off. Fuck off and go solve this stupid problem.
You need some fresh air.
It's probably just a wild dog or some shit. Go. Whatever. And so he goes and talks to Vinay. And Vinay is like, no, this Skin Man is real. Don't listen to your fucking dad. And gives him the skinny on how to kill him.
Be careful.
And then Roland leaves with Jamie DeCurry. I mean, there's kind of more that happens here, but it's fine. You read the book. I'm fast forwarding us through so we can get to the part where we get to the good story, which is the story about Tim Ross. Because they're on the train derails. They end up having to cowboy their way in, walk their way in. And interestingly enough, there's another story in here because they meet the sheriff. And the sheriff is like, oh, let me tell you about your dad. Which was an interesting way of folding in more story about Stephen.
More background, yeah.
And about the way that gunslingers used to be.
Mm-hmm.
That they just roamed around and they showed up where they were needed. That one's not important either. What's happening is a guy is shapeshifting into different beasts and then straight up slaughtering entire families.
Yep.
And probably the most Stephen King section of this entire book. If you had not told me who wrote this book and you just showed me this section, I'd be like, it's Stephen King, isn't it? And it's when he goes to meet the nuns. And everyone is like, don't talk to the nuns. They literally eat men. And he shows up and the one nun is like a giantess. And we know that because he says something about each of her breasts could have provided enough shade to cover
a baby.
For a baby or whatever. You're like, the fuck?
Oh, and we get...
the fuck, Steven?
I'm recalling 2 instances of what happened to their balls in different situations.
I didn't even remark upon it this time because I'm sure ball sweat, whatever needed to be happening to balls happened to balls. But that lady's name is Everline. And she introduces us to a nun named Fortuna who was attacked by the Skin Man.
Yeah.
And for some reason we throw in here that Everline saw him attack Fortuna and then saw his dick. And his dick was long and sharp and blade shaped. And he was going to fuck her as he killed her. And I was like, did you have to? Did you? What spirit moved you that you were like, you know what? I think a guy turning into animals and just murdering everyone, eating their heads.
That's not enough.
Cracking open their skulls and eating out their brains. That's not bad enough. What if he was also a rapist? Let me just throw that in there. The more we butt up into this, the more I realize how much it bothers me. And it really reminded me of Terry Goodkind. We talked about this right before the podcast. There's that section in Terry Goodkind where we meet the
Sisters of the Dark.
The red Aes Sedai and analogous.
Black Aes Sedai.
Okay, whatever. The black Aes Sedai whatever. The analogous group.
Red ones are still the good ones, Rachel.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They're just not into men romantically.
Not nice. Anyway, the first couple Terry Goodkind books are just a straight lift of the Wheel of Time. So, not Black Aes Sedai, but whatever. Sisters of the Dark.
Sisters of the Dark.
Yeah. Not the Black Aes Sedai, but the Sisters of the Dark. Yeah, they have to fuck a demon with a barbed penis as part of their initiation rite.
And they have to performatively enjoy it.
Yeah.
Otherwise it won't finish.
Nothing would induce me to read Terry Goodkind ever again in my entire life. I think if you told me I would die if I didn't read Terry Goodkind, I'd just sign off. Great, thanks. It's been a good run. By the end of his first book, every single character has been raped, including the male main character.
Not every single character.
Who? Who didn't get raped?
Kaylin.
Okay, because her superpower is, are you ready? The power to not get raped. That is her fucking superpower.
Yep.
So of course she didn't get sexually assaulted because that is her superpower.
And the Sage Merlin character, I can't remember.
Okay.
His name.
Whatever.
Richard's grandfather.
Not Zifnab.
Not Zifnab.
But basically Zifnab. Okay, anyway. We don't ever come back to that, so I don't know why we mentioned it. We don't come back to it even like a tiny bit.
Right.
So it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's okay. We move past this pretty quickly. They head into town. They meet the sheriff. And then...
It's just more body horror.
We find out they have a phone, which they call it like a jing-jang.
Yeah.
And then they have a telegraph machine, which they call the like click-clack. Like, all right, that's okay.
Well, you know, when they added sound to movies, they called them talkies.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh, what does movie mean?
Oh, I know that movie is a ridiculous name. I am aware of that.
So calling a telephone a jing-jang because it makes a jing-jang noise.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
I get it. It was the back-to-back, the jing-jang and this is my jing-jang, this is my tic-tac, it's fine.
Walkie-talkie.
What matters is they get a phone call in the morning that an entire family's been murdered. Walkie-talkie, correct. Yes. No, I hear you. If anyone can take a step back and appreciate objectively how weird the absurdity of the world around us, I feel like we've sort of honed that as our brand, okay? So I'm with you on that. I'm just trying to get us to the story. Because
that's not the point of this podcast.
We've spent 45 minutes talking about everything but the wind through the keyhole. I've recommended Kate DiCamillo. I've recommended an out-of-print sci-fi author from the 80s. You guys are gonna this is just good. This is the quality. This is the quality content that people come to us for. Honestly, somebody left a comment on our YouTube, which thank you so much. That was like, I really look forward to listening to you guys. I love hearing about all the different sci-fi stuff. You're welcome. It's just another service we offer. I have a flow chart in my brain of like all these properties. And so while I'm reading, I'm like, oh, that's like this. Oh, that's like this. Oh, that's like this one. That's like this one. That's like this one. So it's kind of fun to be able to sit down and be like, this reminded me of the following 6 books.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we never talk about Boat of a Million Years again, we will be just on point. Unless we read it. That's the book that we need to break down chapter by chapter. I would actually die. What matters is there's a witness. This whole family's murdered, but this one kid hid under the tack and managed to survive. And not only managed to survive, but managed to catch a glimpse of the bad guy.
Yep.
So now we know the bad guy, are you ready for this? This overwhelming piece of evidence, can ride a horse. Hot damn.
Hey, it's a lead.
Hot damn. It's a lead that he doesn't need a lead because he can ride a horse. But and he has a tattoo of a line around his ankle.
Yeah, after Roland hypnotizes him.
So this guy's brilliant idea, Roland's brilliant idea to solve this problem is to take this kid and lock him in a cell and then
for his safety.
Parade all salt miners who can ride a horse.
And have a tattoo around their ankle.
In front of the door. Correct. Yes. And he does not realize until the next day that somebody could just say, I don't know how to ride a horse, and then not get paraded in front. And he's like, God damn, outsmarted again. Which luckily Jamie DeCurry and the guy with him are like, oh, no.
Oh, no, we thought of that.
Yeah, we thought of that. And he's like, oh, thank God. I love how, I don't want to say dumb. I love how uncomplicated Roland is.
Yeah.
I love that he keeps getting put in these murder mystery situations and his solution is just to like brute force his way through it.
Yeah.
Like, why pick a lock when you can just break down the door? It doesn't make sense.
Right. It's kind of the opposite of Harry Dresden.
If you break down the door, no one can ever lock the door on you again. You solve the problem forever.
You know what this guy, Roland is the anti-Sherlock Holmes.
I know. He's like, I don't solve mysteries. I just kill everyone, and then for sure I've got the bad guy.
I don't solve mysteries. I flatten them. I put holes in them.
Everyone around him ends up solving the problem, and Roland knows it. He's always like, yeah, that's not my strong suit. His strong suit is
it's like the Pink Panther.
Oh, it's absolutely like, and then it gets solved around him.
But not comedy.
No, it gets solved regardless of whatever he does.
Yeah.
He more Nick Knight, one might say.
Yeah.
He's a bit Nick Knight-ish, where he doesn't actually do any police work. The mystery gets solved. He just has absolutely nothing to do with it, except that every once in a while he kidnaps the wrong guy.
He participates.
He does. He gets the like. This is what always happened to me when I was on sports teams is I would get the like team award, the like team spirit award. And one time I got the Christianship award because of course I have so much religious trauma, but even the sports teams I was on were religious based. Mm-hmm. And so I won the Christianship award because I most exemplified the like properties of Christ or whatever. I cheered for everybody because if I cheered for everybody, they didn't put me out on the field or make me do anything. So I was like, you guys are doing a great fucking job. No, it's fine. I don't want to go out there. You do it. You're so much better at it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why my parents put me in sports. They just had hope. And every year I just crushed it because I just never.
Right. Doing it a couple times. Okay, and you got to try it out.
I was in softball for like 9 years.
But to keep doing it year after year.
After year after year
after you continuously showed no interest.
One year I faked an injury during tryouts. I pretended I couldn't move my head. Not even like a believable injury. I was like, I can't turn my head side to side. And they were like, just do your best. I think I actually ended up on a pretty good team that year because I was the pity assignment. It's gonna be fine. She's never gonna. It's fine. She'll balance out the rest of the teams.
Look how well she's doing with an injury.
I pretended to not be able to move my head. That's not even, I wasn't even like limping. I don't know. It's, you know what? It's fine. It's a thing. It happened. What matters is Roland has to comfort this child overnight because this small boy's parents were murdered. His dad was murdered. Now he's locked in a cell, and this crazy gunslinger is like, don't worry. You're here because I'm going to bring the bad guy to you, and you're going to tell him he's the bad guy.
He's alone all day, every day, except for when Roland needs to sleep, and Roland goes and sleeps in the cell with him.
Yeah, so he ends up telling him a story, and it's a story that his mother has told him, and it's the wind through the keyhole. I feel like this was one of the strongest parts of the Dark Tower so far.
Yeah.
Is the creation of this myth, a mythology inside the mythological world of the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
It also fleshed out sort of their connection to Arthur because we got to meet Merlin.
Right.
This felt so... because the Dark Tower itself is a quest-based story. Mm-hmm. It is the hero's journey.
Yeah.
It is Roland, who is ultimately maybe not even the hero. He might be the sage character, ending up gathering the heroes and taking them on their journey to the Dark Tower. And so his journey to the Dark Tower ultimately is to send the rest of them on their way. That's what it feels like where we're going. After the emphasis on how much Roland is falling apart in Wolves of the Kala.
Yeah, which is a really, and everything.
I feel like the Dark Tower is Stephen King's sandbox. Like each story is a snapshot of his career at the moment that it was written. Mm-hmm. And it is a way for him to explore story structure and character and storytelling in a way that he never could in a standalone novel. Because people come to the Dark Tower expecting weirdness.
Right.
You come expecting.
Right. And something it feels
unexpected.
Like the Dark Tower isn't something that there are books by Stephen King that you can tell he needed an addition on his house.
Yeah. Or he was really high.
And the Dark Tower is not one of those.
The Dark Tower feels like where he's playing. This feels like his play.
It's like something that's going to come out of him one way or another.
Yeah.
And so it's something like he's compelled to write, a story he's compelled to write.
It's like the difference between writing a program for work and writing a program for yourself.
Yeah.
You're more comfortable breaking the rules when you're not concerned about success. You're concerned about creating something new.
Right. I need to get this story out of me, not I need to get a paycheck.
Right, because he has so many other successful properties. He doesn't need these to knock it out of the park. He needs these to be Dark Tower novels. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to be Dark Tower novels if they feel like a mainstream novel. Yeah. And so he is encouraged. He has set up a place for himself where he is encouraged to play and try new structures like this kind of like tripartite or triptych structure that he uses for this novel, which is really fascinating. Because then we start the Tim Ross story. And this is Roland telling the story of when Roland told the story to this boy in the past. And it plays like a fairy tale with like there's fairies. There's sort of an evil godmother, evil stepfather character. Mm-hmm. There is a tax collector or a representative of the government or whatever. There's the covenant man who shows up to gather taxes. And he also gives Tim Ross a key that will open anything. So there's magic. I do like the part where he has a magic wand. He's like, wow, is that a magic wand? He's like, well, it started life as the stick shift of a Dodge Charger or whatever. Yeah. Oh, is that something magic? I mean, it kind of was. Sure.
But anything can be magic.
Anything is magic in the right hands. And it feels like he's also introducing themes. Well, he wouldn't have been introducing them because it's in the past, but he's sort of highlighting themes of the story as a whole.
Yeah.
Which is like the jawbone in the first story, how the jawbone was magic and how a wooden key has been magic and all of the things along the way that are innocuous, but because they're held in the right hands.
Innocuous.
That's it. Innocuous. I'm sorry that you didn't hear me correctly, but I said it correctly.
Okay.
Because
Gotcha.
I'm a podcaster and I know how to talk. But it's all of these innocent seeming objects that are just wood or just whatever, but at the right moment in the right hands are magic. And I think that's a really fascinating way to kind of loop in the mythology of the world itself, which is you can be magic. That can be magic. Anything from the right perspective can be more than what it is.
What's the most powerful finger in the world?
Oh, are we going to Willow right now? Your own. Your own. Your own. Your own. The things that you control.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, that is the only thing ultimately you can control. And a lot happens. His mom gets remarried because she won't be able to pay the taxes. But the guy that she gets married to ends up being an alcoholic and abusive. And that is why Tim ends up taking the key and opening his box. And although he believes his father was murdered by a dragon, he ends up finding
his father's coin.
His father's lucky coin and his axe. And
which
he realizes
should have been burned in the dragon fire.
Yeah, he realizes, oh shit, more is happening. So then he goes and meets the Covenant Man. And the Covenant Man is maybe Randall Flagg?
Walter/Martin?
It says RF/MB. And I think, isn't that Martin Broadcloak?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because Tim goes on this journey, and it's the best part of the entire novel when he sets off on Mitzi or Bitsy, who cares? One of them. And he ends up meeting that fairy. The fairy leads him deeper into the woods. And all of this happens because he has found a pail and he's found the magic wand that the Covenant Man uses.
Car shifter.
And so he's going off to save his mom because his mom is blind because she was beaten so badly. She's gone blind. And the fairy leads him into the swamp, into the middle of the swamp. And these things are going to eat him. And so he shoots one of them. And he's like, it really felt good to shoot that guy. Yeah, that's really weird. I've never even held a gun before, but like that felt right. And then the mud people show up and they're like, "Ooh, are you gunslinger?" Well, they can't say anything. They're psychic, so they can hear what he's thinking, but they can't make any vocalizations.
The only thing they can say is Heil.
Heil. Like Heil gunslinger. And he's like, "Oh, you think I'm a gunslinger?" Yeah, obviously I'm a gunslinger. I mean, oh my God. And then they take him off and give him this little disc. I love the conceit that there are just artifacts lying about the countryside.
Yes, like high technology artifacts as like enchanted magical items.
Because Stephen King can create exactly what he needs at any given moment as long as he puts Lamarck Industries on it. This kid needs a flashlight and a compass and a friend. Great. I'll give him this disc that is a flashlight, a compass, and a friend.
With a battery life of 70 years.
Yeah. How long will this flashlight last? 70 years. Well, that ought to do just fine. And so he goes on this quest, and he ends up meeting the Thraken, which I don't remember if the first time we met Oi, if he said Thraken or not.
I don't think so.
I think he said like Badger Dog / Billy Bumbler. I don't remember if he said Thraken. And then at a certain point, he refers to the Thraken as a group. Like the collective
noun of Billy Bumblers is a Thraken.
In the story. But then earlier, Bix and Roland refer to Oi as Sir Thraken. As just singular Sir Thraken. What is up, Sir Thraken? Okay, whatever. It may just be a difference between the story world and our world.
Yeah.
But a Stark Blast is coming, which is all that matters. And he ends up at a Dogan, And this is why we're getting to this part, because this is where he meets Merlin. But Marilyn, Maerlyn.
Okay.
I don't know how they said it in the audiobook.
But I think Merlin.
Merlin. Because Tim has the option of killing this tiger, Tyger, or whatever, because it has the key card on its necklace, on its collar.
Yes, 2 things on its necklace.
Yeah, a key, which is
and
in the shape of, there's a footnote. It's like in the shape of a word in the high speech. Or this key card. And so he's going to shoot the tiger, and then he's like, fuck it. And he just asks the tiger nicely. The tiger's like, yeah, sure, take my shit.
Well, he has something revealed to him.
Well, he realizes...
From the Covenant Man?
He realizes the Covenant Man is expecting him to kill the tiger. Because he's like, oh, he must not have realized I had the gun.
Something transforms, and he has some type of embedded message from the Covenant Man, and it's a key to the cage.
No.
Yeah. He gets a key to the cage, and
there's a note. There's a note that's waiting for him.
Okay.
Yeah, it says, "Greetings, brave and resourceful boy. Welcome to the North Forest Kinnock, which was once known as the gateway of Outworld. Here I have left you a troublesome tiger. He is very hungry, but as you may have guessed, the key to shelter hangs around his neck. As you may have also guessed, this key opens the cage.
Yeah.
Use it as you dare. With all regards to your mother, whose husband will visit her soon, I remain your faithful servant, RF/MB." So Randall Flagg / Martin Broadcloak. Yep. So that's our Randall Flagg drop in. Yeah. So the Covenant Man is also Randall Flagg / Martin Broadcloak.
Yeah.
Who serves the Crimson King.
Which we don't really know anything
Which is in the story. The mythological / modern day fairy tale that Roland tells includes the Crimson King, which might be why every time he hears Crimson King, he's like, wow, that sounds really familiar.
Okay. Interesting
that Randall Flagg even shows up in their mythology.
Right. He's been around that long.
And we also get, we skip this part, but when he's talking to his dad says, kind of implies that the mother only had an affair with Martin Broadcloak because she was coerced or because she was magically induced to do it, which is interesting because that means it's non-consensual, which means he was mad at his mother for having an affair when really she was being assaulted.
Right.
Interesting twist. Anyway, the best part about this is he doesn't even get into the Dogan. He tries to use the key card and he's like, shit. Because his little disc thing was like, yeah, there's no power left there. It ends up telling him everything he needs to know and then dying because it violates Directive 19.
Right.
Which nobody asked Andy what Directive 19 was. They found the password to get in to they found the admin password for Andy and they were like, cool, shut off. No one was like, okay, who programmed you? Okay, what's Directive 19?
At that point,
they knew.
Well, at that point, they didn't need to know anymore. They just needed to neutralize the threat and move along toward the Dark Tower.
I still would have asked. Right. But he ends up opening a box that's beside the Dogan and it has a magic sheet in it that every time he unfolds it, it unfolds. So it can be as big or small as you want.
Yeah.
And he lays underneath of it with the tiger.
To keep them warm during the Stark blast.
He's going to shoot the tiger, and then he's like, oh, that must be because he didn't realize I had a gun. He didn't know I could so easily kill the tiger. And then he's like, what if he knew I had a gun? And he wanted me to kill the tiger.
Right.
Huh. I'm not going to kill the tiger. And so they do. They stay warm through the Stark blast under the magic blanket, and then he flies on it like a magic carpet all the way back home and saves his family.
Yeah.
And gets
Merlin
the bad
helps.
guy. Yeah, Merlin helps a little. Merlin's like, I've been a tiger for a real long time. I've been shitting in the cave or shitting in the cage for a really long time. I do like when they come back, because I forgot we were coming back to another story. We come back to Roland in Roland's story, and Billy is like, what did the tiger eat? if the tiger was shitting, it had to eat something. So what did it eat? And Roland's like, it's just a story. Don't question it. Shh, shh, shh. It was good. It was so long. It felt like there's this K-drama I watched one time called Orange Marmalade. And I watched it because it had vampires in it. Don't even ask me. But after like the second episode, it goes from being modern day to being a historical drama.
Oh, I think you told me about that one.
And the historical drama section is so long, I legitimately forgot it took place in modern day. And when we went back to modern day, I was like, wow, we time traveled. That's really fascinating. And then I remembered
that you started off that way.
It started off that way. And I was like, oh shit, I legitimately forgot. I forgot. I was like, wow, this story's wrapping up. There's a lot left. There's still some left in the book. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Because there's still 2 more stories that need to be wrapped up.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It was good though. Because they find the guy. He kills some people really graphically. He like transforms into a snake and burrows his way through somebody's neck.
Yeah, that's gross.
And then he's attacking people and the guy's like bobbing on his body, on his neck. And luckily Roland commissioned a silver bullet.
Yep, at the beginning.
Yeah, because this is just a straight werewolf or whatever. And it's because they found an artifact in the salt mines, and the salt mines turned this guy into a shapeshifter. It's fine. And then we come back and everybody, and like we wrap it up. It all wraps up really nicely. This is really linear. It's really simple. It's really straightforward. The prose is very uncomplicated. The story is very uncomplicated. It gives us some interesting glimpses into the world. It would be a great revisit of the characters if I had loved the series and then it came out 8 years later. It would give me a chance to spend some time with them again.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's really just a character building exercise. It's good. It's fine. I think if I had read it, if I had been in the boat of someone who'd finished and then this came out and I read it, I wouldn't be disappointed.
Yeah.
But it would kind of feel like, okay, that was fun. But the main characters aren't even in it for the majority of the book. They're in the very beginning.
Right.
And the very end. And then they move on. And when they're moving on, they're going into Wolves of the Kala, which we just finished talking about. And it was interesting, but it didn't really give us a whole lot to talk about. The only reason I wish we'd read it first. It reminds
me of the first Law books, the
Yeah.
first Law trilogy. You have the initial trilogy with all those main characters. And then there's like 2 or 3 standalone stories in the world of the first Law. And you like tangentially hear references to characters from the original trilogy. And so it's like, okay, I got to go back to that world. But like what happened to the High Mage guy? What happened to
you're not
king?
you're getting something, but you're not getting like what
you're not getting
wanted.
more of the characters that you're
hoping
in
to
it
get.
for.
Yeah, I get it. Apparently, he had a poll on his website about which book he should write next in 2010. This one did not win.
Oh.
It got beat by Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining.
Yeah.
He doesn't write a lot of sequels. A lot of
Dr.
his early...
Sleep, that was the other excerpt at the end of the audiobook.
He writes a lot of books that all happen in the same fictional town in Maine. And actually, they'll spoil each other if you're not careful, so you have to kind of read those in order. Because they'll allude to events that happen in other books. He'll spoil a bitch, okay? He will spoil you. You got to watch out for Stephen King because he's like, anyway, this one time I was reading whatever. I was watching this movie called Star Wars, and there was this guy who said this was this other guy's dad. Do you know when our daughter watched Star Wars for the first time, she didn't know that Darth Vader was Luke's father because I worked so fucking hard to make sure she had that moment.
We kept that a secret.
You know how hard that is in the zeitgeist?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially with all the new Star Wars content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. And she said she's a Star Wars fan. I think she's only watched the original trilogy. And I want to be like, okay, baby, that's exactly how you're supposed to be a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
From Mama's perspective. Anyway, that's a neither here nor there. I just think that's interesting because he announced that he was working on it in like 2009. He was like, I have a picture of like a modern day fairy tale involving the characters from the Dark Tower. I'm workshopping it right now. I had like an image of them and then like a picture of a head on a fence post. And I think I've got the whole story together now. And you're like, that's exactly how Stephen King plots out a story. That's exactly how it works.
Well, didn't he just post within the last few months about returning to the world of the Dark Tower?
Still stands or something like that? Yeah. And then I saw an article that popped up on my thing that was like details about the upcoming Dark Tower book. And I was like, no, I'm not receiving that right now. I have to finish the series. I'm so hyper aware of the fact that I could get spoiled at any moment because this book has been finished. This series has been finished for so long. And it's fine. I'm not mad at anybody who puts stuff up on the internet. That's on me to be vigilant. And normally I wouldn't care. But since we're reading it for the podcast, I have to experience it as if I don't know what's happening. And if I know what's happening, it's really hard for me to not know, not bring that in.
Not discuss it, yeah.
So I'm just trying to keep it to what we're reading. Anyway, I already talked about how this is really the bridge between the two halves of the story, between the Dark Tower, the first act, and the Dark Tower, the second act, when it really goes off the rails, when he just was like, I'm writing the rest of this bitch right now. Bam. Which we just started with Wolves of the Kala, where we went from it's a weird world with magic and future technology and whatever to it may be actually fictional and maybe everybody in it is fictional and maybe fictional worlds are real.
Right.
Which is a big shift, which I didn't notice. I'm glad somebody pointed. I may have noticed eventually. But it's so weird. It fits. That's another point in my notes, which is like, he could do anything in this world, and I would 100% believe it fit at this point. He could transport them all to New York. They could have to open a sandwich deli, and Roland could have to figure out enough math to run the cashier, and that's the cashier station, and that's the entire plot of the book. And I'd be like, yep, that's Dark Tower 6.
Makes sense.
Sure. I wonder how this relates to the Dark Tower.
It doesn't
I'm sure
make
we'll get
sense,
to it eventually.
but it fits.
They name it the Dark Tower. They have the rose in a jar, like Beauty and the Beast. I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And that's really the end of my notes, which is just like, I'm glad they're this weird. Weird, but readable. Because we've read some books that were weird, but like too far.
Right.
Like Creatures of Light and Darkness was just odd. It was a tone poem. Someone was like, it's a tone poem. His other books are better. Okay, like I'm willing to give Zelazny another chance. But like right now, that's my experience with Zelazny, and it was fucking weird.
Yeah.
And then we read Solaris, which was also weird. Cool, but weird. But like maybe just this side of too weird. Too incomprehensibly weird. Yeah. Weird for the sake of weirdness. I'm still on the belief that Stephen King he's gonna stick the landing. It's gonna pay off. That all of this weirdness is taking me somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why I'm still on board. If it felt like he was just trying to be incendiary or just trying to be provocative, I don't think I would enjoy it. But I don't think he is. I feel like I can see Stephen working something out. He's working through some shit. And I'm happy to be here with him while he does it. I had this discussion with a friend a couple days ago. We were talking about another book that I read, and I was like, I don't know. I don't trust the author to really stick it. I don't really trust them. I don't trust that any of their decisions are intentional. So even when things feel like a twist, it kind of feels like they discovered the twist with me.
Right. It's always just a plot device of expediency.
Yeah. And I know that you can't read a book and know an author. I know that. But there is sort of like a flavor to writing. I could read Jay Kristoff and tell you that's a Jay Kristoff book because it's going to be dark. It's going to be morose. It's going to be flowery. Mm-hmm. It's going to be creative, but also just so damned. Like you just know everyone's going to die. Like I just can tell you from the very beginning that no one's going to come out of this happy. That's very much him. You can read a Terry Goodkind book and know that the male character is going to be buff, handsome. Every woman's going to want him. And every other woman is fighting for her life at every moment of every day because...
Or Terry Pratchett.
Terry Pratchett's going to be funny, witty, but
surprisingly insightful.
But insightful, intelligent, and just really, he'll make you question things you never questioned before, but all wrapped up in some ridiculous joke about a wizard that only knows one spell.
Yeah.
He can somehow convey really meaningful, really important, really provocative concepts through humor. Brilliant, beautiful.
And you're distracted by the absurdity.
The absurdity is the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
It's the spoonful of sugar that makes the medicine go down.
Yeah.
And it's fine. Or you can read a book and be like, I don't trust this author at all.
Yeah.
It can be an enjoyable ride. That doesn't mean they're not a good author. Sometimes they write great books, but they don't know where they're going at all.
Anyway,
and so there's no...
You trust Stephen King in this case.
I know. I was wrapping it up. You don't have to wrap me up, honey. Anyway, yes, that's what I'm getting at. Is it no matter how far out we've gone on Dark Tower, I trust Stephen King to bring this back because he's such a proven author, because I've read so much of him, because I feel like if you're a reader, you have a sense for that. I don't know how to describe that. Or maybe not. Some people read a lot and they don't. They just vibe read. They just enjoy what they're reading. And I love that for people. I wish I could do that. I wish I could just read something and just experience it without analyzing as I read. I really wish I could. I can't. And that's okay too. Everybody experiences art differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people look at a painting and you see a pretty picture. Some people are looking at the medium that was used. Some people talk about, the brush strokes. There's different ways to experience and appreciate and explore art. And writing is an art when done by a human hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably a really good place to leave it because I don't want to talk AI with you right now. Because I know what that's going to devolve into.
The Onion just put out an article, an actual interview with one of the people that runs the Onion, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we are super inefficient, but the inefficiency is the human element."
Correct. Yeah. It's like Meta stole all those books to train their AI. And so all these authors can look up if your book was stolen and used to train this AI. And so they sued Meta for compensation because their books were stolen and scraped and then fed into this language model to train it. And Meta responded with, the text of a book has no inherent value. The text of a book has no inherent value. Its value is only as what the consumer believes it is worth.
Which is a bold argument, especially when you're using that text of no value to build
create
something
that you believe will create value.
You believe will create value.
Correct. Yeah. It is saying that the hand of the artist, the voice of the artist, the mind of the creator has no intrinsic value. That you, as a unique human being with a unique human voice, with a unique human ability to tell a story, have no intrinsic value.
Which is bullshit.
Which is utter bullshit. Utter bullshit. I don't care if you're a writer.
Bold legal argument. Complete bullshit.
I don't care how the courts rule in the end because I think anyone with a brain will tell you that that's utter bullshit.
Yeah.
If you're not a writer and you've ever sat down to write, there are people who can write books and there are people who can't. And that's totally fine. There's people who can paint paintings and there's people who can't. You write code all day. If I'm on a computer for more than an hour, I want to cut a bitch. I hate it. I can't stand it. It is not, we are not the same. And that is why we work so well. Yeah. And yes, I know you think it's really funny that I go back and listen to our podcast, and partly it's quality control because I do go back and if I find something, I'll edit the audio file and take out a cough or a sniff or whatever. But also, I enjoy listening to us interact because we have so much fun talking to each other.
Right.
And there is literally no way that a computer can simulate that.
Mm-mm.
And so we've had some instances lately where friends have relied on language models in order to respond to us. And we had a lengthy conversation about it because it felt very devaluing. Like, you can't talk to me as a human being. We can't relate to each other as people. And anyway, your homework is to remember what it is to be human and to remember what it is to love your own unique and individual voice, because literally no one has ever existed before that is just like you, and no one will ever exist again who is exactly like you. You are a single, unique instance in time that will never happen again.
And the world is less without you being you.
So remember, even you, the strangest things, all the strange and beautiful people are the most beautiful too. I can't remember how to wrap that up. It's fine. So
remember,
you are.
sometimes the strangest things are the most beautiful too.
I don't remember your part. So be who you are and love what you love. Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye.